Hi guys, I'm sketching a quick portrait today, which I'm going to go ahead and get started on here. This is not an organized tutorial, although I am going to talk a little bit about what I'm doing and what I'm considering with the choices that I make. At the beginning here, I'm just suggesting some of the angles and shadows, and I'm just really loosely trying to get a sense of it and to start working out the geometry. I tend to work with angular forms and shapes more than I do curves, at least in the beginning. I find that helps me to get the volumes worked out. I will put my reference up on the screen, but I will warn you ahead of time that I may not follow it super closely. I don't know this person. It isn't a portrait commission, so I'm going to be much more focused on trying to describe form in an interesting way than I am with trying to capture a likeness. And so the reference is really just there to inform the drawing. And sketching quickly, to me anyway, usually means sacrificing some level of likeness and detail. But hopefully your drawing will retain some kind of energy and dynamic qualities in return. I'm just making suggestions and moving on. Just juggling positions until things begin to settle in. I'm using soft vine charcoal. I will probably switch between this thinner stick and a bigger chunk that's a little more efficient for broader areas and darker values. And it also has a little bit of a different character to it that I like. It's almost a texture in a way, noisier. Same stuff, still vine charcoal, or willow actually, just a bigger piece of it. I'm going to go ahead and give myself some value out here in the ether so I can have an edge to work with on the front of his face. There actually is some value out there in the background on the reference. Let's see, let's try and find the back of his head and neck approximately. That's fine for now. I'll work on that area later, and I will likely try and lose that edge somewhat on the back of his head. So now I'm really going to try and get some charcoal down on my page. I'm going to be running a brush through this momentarily, and that will have a much greater effect if there's a lot of material down on my page, so I'm not going to be shy with it. So I mentioned using the brush. The brush is a little bit like knocking it all down, so you have a better foundation to build it back up. It's going to remove noise and soften edges. It's going to bring all the values towards the mid-range. And at this stage, a lot of that is desirable, but I'm going to need to take steps after brushing through it to selectively reintroduce some of that sharpness and noise and those deep darks back into the equation. Okay, so now I'm going to knock this down some with my brush, and then I'm going to get into the bigger chunk of charcoal and try and get some of that chaos back and anchor the form with some density. Okay, so I'm going to use this bigger piece of charcoal in the way that you might paint with a wide flat brush. I'm going to be bold with it, and I'm going to try to follow the form and through the form. And I'm really just thinking shape and value here. More value on his beard. I don't like that. That's too soft. I want to get that grit back in there. I want to try and bring these two forms together so there's not such a pronounced ridge there on that edge. Okay, so now I feel like the shadows are starting to make sense. So now I'm going to start to bring in some of the smaller shapes and suggest some of the details with the smaller stick. Okay, I'm going to try and find the volume of the eye within the socket. Working out how the eye relates to the nose. The trick now is to develop it without killing it. To develop the forms and introduce some sharper edges without inadvertently removing all of the life and energy from it. Let's see. I'm going to move the glabella a little bit forward. Sorry if I'm going silent for long stretches. That tends to happen as I get more focused. I'm going to use my kneaded eraser now to pluck out a few highlights on his nose. I'm noticing that his eye is a touch too far back within the socket, but it's not too bad. So I'm just going to try and influence it forward here and there as it develops, without completely reconstructing things. There's a little bit of light hitting his whiskers on that front edge. I want that edge to be fairly soft and suggested, though. Trying to work in a little interest and variation here. And I'm just tinkering with smaller and smaller shapes now. I think I need a firm shadow under his nose. That's a little bit better. And drop in some highlights on his forehead. I want to lose this edge completely. There's an edge there at the top of his head that's too high, but it won't let me rub it out completely. Okay, I'm going to get my charcoal pencil out, and I'm just going to use it very sparingly to tease an edge here and there. still not going to let me rub that line off, so we will just cover it up. Right, that's a little better. I'm going to suggest an ear. The ear is within the shadow mask, so I'm going to keep it very subtle. And I'm going to just turn the edge of that upper lid just a bit. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to leave this one. Please leave any questions or comments you have down below, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.